All right, let's jump right in. We're going to talk about this really powerful mental technique. And the crazy thing is, it wasn't cooked up in some fancy lab. Nope, it came from one guy's personal, private struggle with his own limits. It's called Markell's Law, and it's basically a story about how you can forget how to quit.
So it all kicks off with this feeling, and I bet you know exactly what I'm talking about. That little voice in your head that just decides when you're done. Markell Merritt put it perfectly in his journal. My brain would whisper, "That's enough," and I believed it. And see, that's the key right there. This wasn't his body giving up. It was his mind surrendering way too early.
And that brings us to the big, kind of scary question at the heart of all this. What if that voice is lying to you? What if your limits are just a complete fabrication, a story you've been telling yourself for years?
Okay, so to really get this law, you got to get the guy who stumbled upon it. Markell Merritt used to describe himself as, well, the guy who tapped out early. Whether it was at the gym or in other parts of his life, he'd always hit this invisible wall, this ceiling he just couldn't seem to break through.
But here's the thing he figured out, and this is so important. The problem wasn't his muscles. It wasn't his stamina. The real issue was that his mind was already planning the finish line before he even got started. It was like his brain was setting an alarm clock for failure, and he'd just stop right when it went off.
So, the big moment, the breakthrough. It didn't happen in some epic, movie-like scene with a coach screaming in his face. No, it was the total opposite. It happened in complete silence, during a totally normal, boring push-up workout. But everything was about to change.
So there he is, doing his push-ups. His brain is already counting down, and then, right on schedule, he hits that wall. You know the feeling. That familiar voice just screams at you, "Stop." And this was always the point where he'd listen. But not this time. This time, he did something, well, something kind of strange. He didn't try to power through and tell himself, "Come on, just 10 more." No. Instead, he just quietly said to himself, "Let's just do 10. Like it was a whole new workout, as if the first reps never even happened.
And this is where you see the genius of it. Look at the difference here. The old way, saying 10 more, keeps your brain in what he called finishing mode. It's all about panic, it's a countdown to failure. But the new way, just 10, tricks your brain into starting mode. It's calm, it's present. And the result? You just keep going. And that was it. That was the huge aha moment. He realized he wasn't fighting his body, he was outsmarting his brain. He was basically bypassing this mental governor we all have. You know, that internal safety switch that yells at you to stop, long before your body is actually anywhere near its real limit.
You know, what started as this little mental trick during a workout, well, it quickly became something much, much bigger. Markell started noticing this pattern everywhere. It was a repeatable principle, a formula that just worked. He realized he hadn't just found a trick, he'd stumbled upon a genuine law of motion for the human mind.
And so this is the official definition he came up with. Markell's law of limitless motion says that by intentionally resetting your awareness of how much work you've already done, you can push past physical and mental barriers without all that psychological resistance that comes from tracking your limits.
Okay, that's a mouthful. So let's just break it down into plain English. It's this simple. Stop counting how far you've gone. Just keep starting over, and you will go so much farther than you ever thought was possible.
And this slide just lays it out so clearly. He saw it as two different modes your brain can be in. Tracking mode is the enemy, right? It's the accountant in your head. It counts, it predicts, it gets scared, and it creates that finish line. But the goal is to shift into present motion mode. In this mode, your brain has no idea how far you've gone. And if it doesn't know when to stop, well, it just doesn't.
All right, so this all sounds great in theory, but how do you actually do it? How do you make this work for you? Well, Markell boiled it down to a super simple 3-step method anyone can use. It's just 3 words to remember: reset, repeat, rise. So, step 1, you reset. You consciously forget everything you just did. Your cue is simple. Let's just do 10, or let's just write 1 page. Step 2, you repeat. You do that next little chunk of work as if it's the very first thing you're doing. And then step 3, you rise. It's only afterward that you look back and realize, whoa, I just blew past my old limit. Now, here's the really cool part. Even though Markell discovered this just through his own struggle, it lines up perfectly with a ton of real science. We're talking about a cognitive reset that bypasses the brain's central governor, that thing that signals fatigue way too early. It helps you get into a flow state by getting you to stop overthinking. Over time, through neuroplasticity, you're literally rewiring your brain.
And it even uses a technique called healthy dissociation, something you see in elite endurance athletes. It's legit. But, this is so much bigger than just push-ups or running. The real power of this law is how you can apply it to almost anything that feels hard.
I mean, just look at the physical results first. The people who started using this early on reported a 30 to 60% increase in their endurance. Let that sink in. A 30 to 60% jump. Not from more training, but just from a change in mindset. That's insane.
But look at all the other places this works. You're studying, and your brain is fried? Let's just read one more page. Trying to stay sober? Let's just get through the next 5 minutes. Staring at a blank screen trying to write? Just one paragraph. It works for creative work, for meditation, even for managing your emotions. It's a universal tool for turning overwhelming mountains into a series of tiny, manageable steps.
And you can see that shift in the feedback people give. Like this person who said, "My brain doesn't panic at the halfway mark anymore. I finally feel in control of my momentum." You can just feel the relief in that, right? They're not being controlled by that internal panic button anymore.
Which brings us all the way back to Markell's ultimate realization. He said, "I didn't just beat my limits. I forgot they ever existed." And that's really the end goal here. It's not just about pushing through a wall. It's about realizing the wall was never really there to begin with. It's about erasing it from your mind completely. And that leaves you with one question to think about. What walls in your life are just waiting for you to forget them?